guys, welcome back to the YouTube channel. Today I'm going to discuss one of my most favorite and one of most intriguing topics of entire mechanics, which is a gyroscopic effect. Now to understand this topic, I think you need some knowledge in vectors, but even if you don't have any knowledge in vectors, I think I'll try my best to make some sense about it. Alright? But before we start, you make sure you subscribe to this YouTube channel. There is a lot of interesting stuff just like this coming up. So let's get started. I'll start with the idea of linear momentum. Now, when a body has some linear momentum, we already know the idea that the linear momentum is in the form of inertia. The body tends not to change the direction of the linear momentum. We all basically know this idea. It is exactly the same with the angular momentum also. When a body is rotating, you all know that when a body is rotating like this, the angular momentum is perpendicular to the plane and the body tends not to change the direction of angular momentum, and we can clearly observe this thing with the fidget spinner. When a fidget spinner is actually rotating in gravity space, there are some videos where a fidget spinner is rotating in gravity free space, and when you push it, it doesn't even try to change its direction. It tends to rotate in the same direction. It kind of is stable. But if the same fidget spinner is at rest, and if you give a small impulse to it, it tends to rotate. But if you take the same fidget spinner and spin it and give some impulse, it tends to stay stable and move forward direction. Okay. There is even a video where an astronaut take two disc players. He gives impulses to both the disc players. He gives small impulses to both the disc players. One of the disc player wobbles, the other disc player actually stays stable and moves forward. The very simple reason is one of the disc player has no disconnect, the other disc player is actually rotating inside the disc player. So the disc player is actually having some angular momentum, it gives it some stability. Now we use the same idea in the gyroscopic stabilization of a lot of objects. One of the best examples is the pool table in a cruise ship. We all know that the cruise ship actually wobbles a lot, right? But the pool tables inside a cruise ship actually completely stay stable, even the whole ship is actually wobbling. You know how they do that? They actually attach a huge gyroscope right beneath it and it kind of rotates. Now when it is rotating, it has a lot of stability. The more it rotates, the more angular momentum it has, the more stable it is. And because of this angular momentum, the whole pool table actually stays stable, even the entire ship is actually wobbling. They even use the same idea in the flight stabilization. We all know that when you are flying, you don't really know at what angle the flight is at, right? So they use the same idea of gyroscope inside a plane. There is a gyroscope which is actually rotating. The gyroscope actually stays stable, and when the plane tilts, with respect to the plane, the gyroscope makes an angle, and using that idea, they actually measure the angle at which the plane is actually rotating or turning or tilted, we can say. And we see the same kind of stabilization in a top. Whenever you see a top, you kind of try to disturb it. It wobbles and it tries to come back to its original position. Is the same idea. It tends to stay in the same angular momentum. I can even give you another example. Take a coin, try to make it stand. It is difficult, right? But the same coin, when it is rolling or when it is rotating, it has some angular momentum and it can stabilize itself. The very reason in this situation is also the angular momentum possessed by the coin. Now to understand this, we also need to understand what's happening in a circular motion, which is quite related. I'll tell you how. When a body is having a linear momentum and you are applying a force perpendicular to it, the body is not suddenly changing its complete direction of momentum and it's going like this. It's not happening, right? The body is slowly changing its direction. When you apply a force like this, it is tilting, and when you apply a force like this, it is tilting, and your force apply like this, it is tilting, and the whole process is kind of repeating throughout the entire circular motion, right? Now we can actually experience a similar kind of an effect with angular momentum also. But to understand this, I want you all to do a little experiment. Try to find a disc in your home or wherever you are. The best disc that I can manage to get in my home is just this plate. But yeah, we can manage with this thing. Now take a plate and try to rotate this. I am pretty sure you're all experts at this thing. Now when a disc is rotating like this, it clearly has some angular momentum, and we are all experts and we know the angular momentum direction is vertically upwards. Now when a disc is rotating, try to put a force right perpendicular to this at this point. Now we all know that when the disc is rotating, when you try to put a torque here, it should bend like this. But guess what? You try to do this, try to rotate a disc and try to put a force here, it immediately tends to go in this direction, which will take you by a surprise. Try it again. Let me try this in front of you. And the disc is rotating. I'm trying to put a force right here, and it kind of rotated in this direction. No, I didn't push it with my finger. I actually want you to try this thing, and it will take you by surprise. But let me explain this first of all. Now the body is rotating like this, and the angular momentum is vertically upwards. Now, when a force is applied here, this is the position vector and this is the force. What is the direction of torque? The direction of torque is actually this. The angular momentum is in this direction. The torque direction is this, which is exactly similar to the previous situation when the linear momentum is in this direction, and when you are applying a force like this, the linear momentum slowly tends to go in this direction, right? It is a similar effect when the disc is rotating. When the disc is rotating and you're trying to put a force here, you're not just putting a force, you're actually creating this force, and this is a perpendicular distance, r cross f. You're actually creating a torque in this direction. The angular momentum is in this direction, the torque is in this direction. So you're actually basically turning the disc in this direction. Try it and let me know if it actually worked or not. Now what happens with a gyroscopic toy is almost a similar thing. When a gyroscopic toy is actually rotating, when it is stable, there is no issue. It is just basically rotating vertically upwards, and the angular momentum is vertically upwards, and nothing is changed. But when the gyroscope is actually tilted like this, and the gyroscope is actually tilted like this and it is rotating, the angular momentum direction is in this direction. Now, when the force, the gravity force is in this direction, it's exactly the same thing. The gravity force is in this direction and it is creating a torque towards me. Now we can even look at the extremity of this thing, where a gyroscopic toy or any wheel or anything like that with an axle which is actually like this and which is tilted and it is rotating. In the same situation, even though the body is rotating, the angular momentum is in this direction, it is clearly rotating. The gravity is trying to pull it down, but it's not the direction of force that matters. The gravity into the perpendicular distance, it is creating a torque in this direction. The body does not go like this. Because of this torque, the body tends to go in this direction, and you can clearly see this in a lot of interesting videos where they actually tend to rotate a fastly rotating body very easily. Or you can even hang a body using an axle and simply connect it to a wheel, rotate it and leave it like that. The wheel happily rotates horizontally rather just simply falling vertical. So that's it guys. I hope I made sense, but if you want a deeper perspective into this topic, I suggest you to watch the entire rotational mechanic lessons that I've taught on the website examtracker.com. If you haven't registered yourself already, please go ahead and register yourself. I'll accept your registrations whenever the next slots are open. Now the topic gets much more complicated when you're talking about a rolling wheel, which actually is stable. You all know that when a wheel is just standing on the ground, it's not really stable. But the wheel is rotating or rolling, it gets a lot more stability, and we all know that. And when it comes to a motion of a bicycle, it gets a lot more complicated, because you're not just simply talking about one wheel, you're talking about two wheels which are connected by a lot of support. So the mechanics get a lot more complicated. I'll see if in the future, if I can explain those things too, I'll definitely make a video about it. But in the end, I want you to check this specific video, a gyroscopic cube, that's what they call it as. But this video is so intriguing because they have some wheels rotating in all the XYZ directions, and because of the rotation, they actually can control the entire motion of the cube. It can simply tilt, stand up, rotate, and be in any angle what they want, which is a very interesting idea. I want you to check it. I'll see if I can explain that to you. And if you have more doubts, simply drop a comment in the comment section, or you can simply follow us on the Instagram page and reach me there. Well, that's it for today. See you in the next video. Thanks so much, and bye bye.